Hey, welcome back to Reddit Cheating Wife, the best channel for cheating stories. Like and subscribe to the channel for cheating stories like this.
My wife and her best friend accused me of having an affair, then got angry when I didn't have one plus update. Last December, my wife, 29 female, and I, 31 male, had a kid. My wife suffered from postpartum depression as a result of the traumatic delivery. While she had planned to return to work soon after the delivery, she has been suffering so much that we decided to wait until our baby was a year old and reevaluate. She has been attending to counseling on a weekly basis. Because my wife is at home full-time, I've had to work longer hours. This is something we addressed before to making this choice, and she was aware of it from the beginning. My supervisor contacted me a few weeks ago about a project that would need a lot of overtime in a short period of time. It would be beneficial both monetarily and professionally. I discussed it with my wife, and she agreed that I should say yes to my employer. During the 4 weeks I'd be working on this, my mill and her closest friend, Jessie, 29F, name changed, would come over to assist with some of the tasks that I normally perform. Jessie is a Psalm with 2 children, ages 4 and 2. She started coming over throughout the day and watching the kids with my wife. We realized 3 weeks into the project that we'd need a couple additional weeks to finish it. That night, I went home and told my wife about it. She stated she was okay with it, but she was quite chilly in the days that followed. It hadn't been uncommon behavior in the previous several months, so I didn't think much of it and tried not to take it personally. During the last week of the project, I came home one night to find Jessie still at home. I didn't give it much thought, just said hello to her and my wife, and then went to check on our baby. Before I could enter her room, I overheard Jessie remark something to the effect of, "He doesn't even come over to meet you." It's unmistakably a sign. I turned around and inquired as to what it was an indication of. My wife immediately began weeping, and Jessie began accusing me of having an affair. She informed me that I must despise my wife since she suffers from PPD and I am not attracted to her as a result of her pregnancy weight gain. Neither of these statements is correct. I'm doing my best to support our family while also assisting my wife with her PPD. And I believe she looks fantastic the way she is now. She simply hasn't wanted to have, and I haven't pushed her. Jessie then requested that I show her my phone. No, I told her. She said it's an indication that I'm guilty. I informed my wife that if she wanted to view my phone, she could. When she nodded, something inside of me shattered. I think it was the fact that she truly thought I was having an affair that got to me, and that, despite all we've gone through, she still didn't trust me. So she went through the phone and found no proof. Jessie began to claim that I had erased the proof. She began yelling and waking up our kid, so I instructed her to leave the home. She eventually left, and I went to comfort our kid since my wife was still weeping on the sofa. When my daughter fell asleep again, I got down next to my wife and attempted to tell her what had happened. She told me she's been concerned about me since I began working so much overtime. I informed her that we'd discussed how great of an opportunity this was, and she agreed to allow me take on this assignment. She thought it was quite strange that the project's term had been extended. That occurs from time to time, I informed her. She demanded further proof, so I sent her texts and emails with timestamps from work, as well as pay stubs showing the yacht. She claimed she trusted me and apologized for her doubts, but Jessie had been telling her that these were all signals that I was cheating. I questioned her why she trusted Jessie more than I did, and why she didn't bring her worries to me. She was at a loss for words. The project has been completed for a few weeks. I've actually reduced my workload and am attempting to work a bit less than I was before the project in order to spend more time with my wife and children. But I'm exhausted from trying to accomplish everything and growing bitter because I know in the back of my mind that my wife doesn't trust me. I wonder what will happen the next time I have a project. Or am I required to go errands one day? Or what if I'm on a business trip? Will I keep coming back to the charges of cheating? I've attempted to bring it up a few times, but my wife says it's not the right time and that she's tired or depressed. I try to be aware of her emotions, but I'm wondering whether it means I'll never experience any of my own. I'm at a loss on what to do here. Do you have any suggestions about how I should proceed? Update 1. I believe many of you have pointed out what should have been obvious. I need to see a therapist and start taking care of my own mental health. A handful of folks have requested for an update, so I'm providing one, but it's not a cheerful one. That night, I addressed my wife and informed her that I was going to seek the services of a therapist. I made no reference to her claims or anything else, I just said that I was having a difficult time and needed treatment. She just shrugged and told me to do whatever I wanted. When I went home from work the next day, our room and my home office had been pulled up. There are things everywhere. Important documents were strewn around. I don't see her, But our kid is weeping in her room. My wife has left her alone, and her mobile phone is turned off. I reach out to my in-laws and a few acquaintances, but no one has seen her. I'm becoming concerned, so I phone my mother to ask if she can babysit while I go search for her. My wife arrives home before my mother. Jessie is driving. Jessie doesn't come in. She hasn't been back since I sent her out for being offended by my actions, but my wife does. She's plainly disturbed, as seen by her weeping. I inquire as to what occurred. At first, I assumed the home had been robbed. She begins yelling at me that I'm disloyal and that the counseling is just a front to meet my mistress. I tried to calm her down and explain her it wasn't true, but she charged at me and struck me. My nose has been broken. She realized what she had done and sat down on the sofa, where she fell unconscious and simply gazed at the wall. I entered my daughter's room and shut the door. I called my mother to inform her what had occurred. She was already on her way, and my mother-in-law to beg her to come over and look after my wife. I prepared a suitcase for my kid and we went when my mother arrived. My wife didn't even raise her head. We left off my baby with my father and then headed to the emergency room for my nose. My mother's new Subaru was covered in blood. My kid and I are staying with my parents for the time being, while my wife is with hers. I'm considering obtaining a restraining order against Jessie. My wife and I are divorcing. I love her, but I won't live with someone who harms me and may harm our kid. I'm not filing for divorce just yet, hoping that my wife will receive the care she needs and that we can work things out. My in-laws informed me that they are considering inpatient treatment at a nearby hospital. But, in case of a custody dispute, I have everything clearly recorded. My heart is torn because I know this isn't my wife, this is a mental illness. But I need to protect myself and our kid, as well as allow her time to recuperate. I'm hoping this is the correct option. After reading your remarks, I spoke to my parents and decided that I needed to make a police complaint for my daughter's safety. I'm on my way to the station right now. Update 2. My wife died on Monday morning. She experienced a mental breakdown after being convinced by her friend Jessie that I was having an affair that I was not having, which led in my taking our baby daughter and residing with my parents for a period. She was with her parents, who intended to take her to the hospital on Monday for inpatient care. She arrived to my parents' home on Sunday night and insisted that I give her our baby. I declined since she had left her alone for many hours the previous time she was in charge of her and had gotten violent with me. I offered to let her come in and spend time with her while my parents and I were present, but she refused and insisted on taking our baby with her. She was unhappy, but she ultimately left. She died a few hours later after crashing her parents' vehicle into a tree. Jessie, a friend, came to visit my kid and myself yesterday. She informed me, through tears, that she was going to speak at my wife's burial. She'd previously approved it with my in-laws, but she was informing me as a courtesy. I informed her that she would not be able to speak at the funeral. We clashed, and she left after telling me that I was a jerk and that I wasn't the only one who loved my wife. I spoke with my in-laws, who are keen that Jessie be given the opportunity to speak. My wife and her have known each other since they were children, and my in-laws are close to her. We're all in a vulnerable state right now, and I'm afraid that pushing this much further may harm my connection with my in-laws, which I don't want. Even still, the prospect of seeing Jessie up there during my wife's burial makes me nauseous. I don't believe I can listen to her knowing she took pleasure in my wife's worsening mental state and picked up my wife, leaving my kid at home alone. That being said, I don't believe I'm making the greatest judgments right now. My thoughts are muddled by sadness, remorse, and dread. My parents are divided on what to do, and I don't have the energy to contact my pals. As a result, I'm returning to seek your help. Thank you very much.